Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to show you one way that I pitch my tarp in a tent form, so that if it's necessary for me to camp on the ground, I can do that. There's lots of ways of pitching a tarp, and there's whole videos on, 10 ways, 20 ways to pitch a tarp, but I'll show you the one that I use, and the one that I find really very straightforward. I know how to do it. I know how to do it in bad weather, and it works very, very well. So have a look. It's one you might have seen before, but believe me, it's a very effective way of pitching a tarp in a tent style. And today's a little bit breezy. We might get the odd gust of wind, so if we do, you'll get to see how you actually do it in the wind, which is really important. One thing to pitch a tent in dead calm wind or no wind. That's another thing to pitch a tent or a tarp in wind. So we'll see how that goes. Have a look. I'll do it in stages, and I'll show you how I'm progressing with it, and yeah, you'll be able to follow along, and I hope you get something out of it. Thanks. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I've laid this out straight here, and if I just go back at the back corner, you'll notice that I've pegged out, that's halfway where the centre ridge line is, just there. I've got one peg out point halfway to the corner, get some shadow here so it's a bit easier to see, and then you've got the corner. Okay, so but do that both sides. So halfway from the ridge line to the corner, same on the other side. Okay, it's blown, the wind's blown that. There we go. Alright, there's the peg. So what we're doing now is I'm going to find the front of this tarp, pull it tight, and so you can see that sort of makes a triangle there. It's hard to see. Hi. Okay, so let's see if I can make sense of this. What we've got is now we've got the two back pegs in there in line either side of that ridge line. What we're going to do now is we're going to peg out the front. Now, to do that, we pull that corner so that it's sort of tight, and you'll see this point, there's another point exactly the same corresponding to the other side, other end. So what we do there is we sort of find that point, and then we come across about, I suppose, 150 millimeters, 15 centimeters, or 6 inches in the old money, and we're roughly going to bring that corner over to here and peg that down and pull it tight so that it's fairly taut, and that will be the front pegging point, and we'll do the same with the other side. Okay, so you can see now I've got that walking pole under here, just in there. Okay, and that's made that now into more of a tent type shape. We've still got a bit to do, but it's starting to become something like a tent. Okay, what we're going to do now is to peg out the front awning, which is this section here, bring that back and peg that out so that it's like an awning, if you like, to the front of the tent. Okay, so I've got that pegged out, and you can see it's got like a front awning type of setup, and that ridge line will hold strong now. So now on each side now we've got this fairly loose flap of material, and we need to do something about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get this middle one, I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to peg that in, and that will then allow me to just fold that flap underneath. So we now have, if you can see correctly, the front peg out point. We've got a fairly tight base to the tent. going to where that's pegged out just there, and we've got that flap. That flap will just fold in underneath and give us somewhat of a little bit of a flooring, at least partial. And I'm going to do the same on the other side, and then we'll look at the next part. Okay, so I've pegged that out now, and you might be able to see now that it's actually now looking pretty much like a tent. Got a couple of little things to do yet, but if I take a bit of a walk around, you can see it's pegged out nicely. Everything's nice and tight, and that is already going to be quite stormproof, at least with the wind coming from the back of the tent. And I always try to pitch a tent, or a tarp for that matter, so that the wind is coming from the low end or the closed end, so that you don't get too much wind coming through and rain coming through where you don't want it, obviously. So we've still got a bit of looseness here at the front. We've got to do something about this, which is easy to do, and the way we do that is we've got a line here. That line, we take that through this loop here, and then we tighten it, and that holds that front open. And I'll do that because I've only got one hand. I'll do that and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so what I've done there is I've tied those flaps back. You can see that I've got the cord running through that loop. So it goes from the peg, goes up through the loop and back to once again my good old Prusik loop, and just with an overhand loop to hold that in place. And I've done that both sides, and you can see that there. And I've got quite a nice little tent in there now. So you've got those flaps pulled through underneath. You've got quite a bit of space. Now that back end is sloping back fairly sharply, and I've actually got another walking pole, so I'm going to prop up that back end a bit with my second walking pole, give me a little bit more room on that back end, and that'll be complete. Now just a bit of a comment. That opening there, that's fairly wide, and if you had wind coming from this direction through there, then obviously you would get a lot of wind. Now you can actually adjust where you peg those points. You can bring them in a bit further, as you can see. That's not hard to understand. So you could bring them in to narrow that point, and then you could put a pack, or you could even drape something like a ground sheet off this front tie out here, and you could make it pretty well windproof and rainproof. So pretty versatile, not absolutely weatherproof. You wouldn't pitch this and expect to get through a snowstorm or something like that, but for rain and just for general shelter, it's pretty good. Plenty of room in there for two, plus gear, and I've used this on quite a few occasions. It's as good a tent as you'd ever want. The only thing lacking is a floor, and of course you can put a ground sheet on the floor, and you've got as good a tent as you'd want. So that's just one way of pitching a tarp, probably for my use the best way. I know it well. I can pitch it in a couple of minutes, and there's a few different variations on this theme that you'll find on the internet. Good, they all work, and it's just a great way of pitching a square tarp. 3 by 3 meter tarp is perfect for this, or 10 foot by 10 foot is perfect for this type of pitch. Okay, I'm going to put that tent pole, that walking pole, in that back area and show you that, and then this is pretty much done. Okay, so what I've done is I've put that walking pole, that second walking pole, in the back, and you can see there how that's made that back end a little bit more roomy. If you're sleeping with your head at that end, it just means that the tent's not right against your nose or anything, and it looks more like a traditional tent. So yeah, that's it. And to look inside, You can see that pole, that second pole at the back there. So yeah, lots of room in there, really nice and airy because of the nice open front, and yet you've still got adequate rain protection. So that's my tarp pitch for a tent if I can't use my hammock.